You're good.
Okay.
I think I gotta turn that on.
on.
I gotta turn it on here.
Oh, you didn't turn on the speaker.
That is.
No, it's good.
Right, there we go. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 10th at 6:08. We're starting the police training committee meeting. We'll start by doing a roll call, although Commissioner Rodriguez is here. She just had to run out really quick.
Restroom trip.
Yeah, restroom, okay. And then Commissioner Benito, I'm present, and Commissioner Chura.
Present.
Great. So we have quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The items on our agenda today, I let everyone know that you're present. The items on our agenda today are to look at the trauma-informed care training review for approval to then send to the full commission. We're going to talk a little bit about an item from the CPC framework for this year that we need to focus on, and then move back to the reality-based neuro training event. So, but also just as a quick update for committee members, and also I want to welcome Commander Woodruff. Thanks for being here. And so we have three trainings that, or three items from the training committee that need to be approved by the full commission. We have the 2024 training plan. We have the 2024 training needs assessment. We have the 3-year training plan, and then we have the crowd management training. So all of those materials were sent to the crowd management was sent to the full commission back in January, and then in February, all three of those materials were sent in February and March. Hey, Dr. Adams. So we weren't able to get to it. We ran out of time in our last meeting. A special meeting has been scheduled for the 15th, so next Monday. So I'm hoping that we will be able to get all of those items approved. And then once they're approved, I'll send an email that evening to our training division staff and the police accountability team so that everyone is aware. So then the only other item that we haven't reviewed yet and sent to the full commission for review is the trauma-informed care training. So as part of the, this is a training that was developed by MRAC and Carol Ballard at the Adams Board. And then MRAC had the opportunity to review it and give feedback. And then Dr. Adams and I also reviewed it and gave feedback. So so now we have the opportunity to approve it. So I wanted to open it up if there's any discussion or thoughts on it. Any concerns? Were there any feedback or concerns on that? Commissioner, no? Looked good?
You got any concerns with it? I mean, you guys can have.
No concerns on my end. I know we reviewed it for the training review committee. We responded with some feedback. Essentially, a lot of it was kind of lecture based. So we asked to kind of have maybe some discussion built into it, maybe some video around videos. And that was incorporated into it. But outside of that, no, there's no concerns. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of the experts developing this. You know, they're the specialists in the fields with the practical hands-on knowledge that they kind of share with us. You know, so that was the only thing. You know, so the content I think is solid. It's good. It's from experts in the field. Just some of like the actual like the pedagogy is what we touched into, just kind of to make it a little more appealing. You know, for a student learner. But that was it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is it's very long. Is it a 2-hour training?
It's 4 hours.
4 hours,
4
okay.
hours, and then we usually give 15-minute breaks, sometimes on the hour, kind of breaks.
Is it gonna be offered as one 4-hour chunk?
It will be, yep.
Do you have any concerns about that?
Um,
I do, because, sorry. Asked you a question and then I answered. What, do you have any concerns about that?
So, yes and no, right? Like, I mean, obviously, we don't want to overtax people when they're sitting in a classroom. But with schedules and the way we have to structure our training, sometimes it's almost out of the necessity of what our availability is. I think that's why it's so important to kind of build in those group discussions, to give breaks when breaks are needed, within the class. So we do give some leeway time within the training for that. Supplement with some videos and just try to make it a little more appealing versus just sitting there having someone talk to you for 4 hours.
Yeah,
We've shifted away from that heavily in the training. Now it's a lot more interaction with the students, a lot more discussion with groups and report outs. But I do agree with you. I share that resentment, that sometimes 4 hours of one topic is too long, but
Especially a topic like trauma.
yeah, so it's one of those, sometimes we just have to look at the schedules that are available to actually provide this.
Is it impossible to do 2 2-hour sessions instead of 1 4-hour session?
I will say nothing's impossible. No, it's not. It's just hard because a lot of times we look at what we're pairing the topic with. So we would have to see how could we break it up? What would it be? A lot of times when we're bringing people down to train, we're removing them from shifts that they would normally be working. So we may only get those officers for that 1 or 2 8-hour days because we're trying not to hurt, operations in the field as well. So we could break it up, but it would be within that short time frame as well. So it would be 2 hours maybe over the course of one day, 1 8-hour day, or 2 8-hour days.
I think logistically for a division, it's really
It's tough.
complicated, so I would just knock it out in 4 hours and you're done with it.
I guess my concern, thank you, and I think that makes a lot of sense, logistically, and also we just know that like if I'm doing a 4-hour chunk of training, by hour 3, like you're gonna see a lot of glazed eyes, and especially this training, the second half, the first half is really like understanding trauma, and the second half is about implementing trauma-informed care. And so my concern is, if you're engaged for the first 2 hours and then you kind of check out, you're missing out, like you're kind of checking out for the part of the training that's like, okay, here's what you do with all this information. And so, I would kind of like to see it be too, I don't want to like make the division's life harder. And also, I do think that this is a really important topic and that the officer's ability to integrate it, I wonder, especially if it could be structured to, like the first 2 hours, kind of all about trauma and understanding trauma, different types of trauma, and then they have an opportunity to go back in the field, kind of marinate on that, see, and then come back. They could start with some reflection questions of like, what's this information? Did you notice anything different? And then go into this is what we do with it. So I think to me, that could make a really big difference in terms of whether the information is really absorbed and whether they're able to integrate the knowledge. Because I just think even a 4-hour training on trauma is just, let's wait till public comment. Okay, thanks, Lou. What are other commissioners' thoughts on that? I think the content's great. I don't really have notes on the content.
So I would say that if we have to keep it a 4-hour training, sometimes during those intermissions when you come back, you might have an activity that helps kind of recharge and make everybody focus, if that's a concern.
I think maybe if it could be something like 2 hours in the morning and then they have a long break, then, but I think just like having an activity to break it, I just think that by the end of 2 to 3 hours, I just don't know.
I think if you got a good class with some good slides, videos to keep the officers interested, 4 hours, it's not all that bad. And no matter what the subject matter is, if it's boring for some of them, it's just gonna be boring for some of them. But I think if you got all the good stuff that's relevant to officers, I think it should be interesting for them. And some are gonna be more engaged than others. Some are gonna be like, I don't need this, you know, but others might, younger generation might.
What do you think, John?
My thoughts are that I think we should do it.
You should what?
We should do it.
Do what?
The 4 hours.
Just in one go?
I do. I mean, I just think about, you know, what Commander Magoo said. There's like a lot of logistics involved with getting. I mean, it's going to be probably more than 13 officers, right?
So that's what I was gonna kind of comment, like, I'm not against, listen, I like micro learning, I like breaking things down.
Yeah.
The issue we do run is we have licensed, social workers and others to come in and teach this. So we would be asking them now to
Double.
split their schedule, and generally the classes are 24 to 36 officers. So it would be tough because we're asking them to do that for 37 sessions or 38 sessions generally.
Right.
So that's, 2 times a week for,
Yeah,
that's not weeks. It becomes tough if we
It's too
start.
much, yeah.
I think it's like a logistical thing. It's like really hard to coordinate all those schedules and then have to do them more than once. I just think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your point is well taken, though. That I know that your motivation is that you want to make sure they can really get what they need to get out of the training.
Yeah.
But maybe there can be some type of maybe like follow up somehow to kind of to maybe like assess sort of like what was retained, and I mean, I don't know, maybe like a survey or something like that could be useful to kind of gauge the effectiveness of it, and then we can maybe think about, I mean, if it wasn't effective, then I think we have to say that maybe as much as the difficulties with scheduling, like you want it to be effective, and so I think we would have to do some type of follow-up evaluation or something, and we can, I think, move from there.
And also, especially since it's their annual, I'm assuming that they had this information before too. So hopefully it's a refresher.
Yeah.
And then maybe we could put it on LMS if they need to review it after, or.
I think the division is well aware of the trauma that officers should go through. When I was still out there, and this is years ago, we had a shooting with a small child. It's horrible. Every officer that went to that scene, they had like a debriefing form, and so the division's well aware of what the cost could be, with trauma to their officers. So I think you guys are already ahead of this, I think. But it's always good to have a different approach. Like, you got different courses instead of another one you might have had. It makes it more interesting. So.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
And just last, like, some of the things we've done is we have the ability now. One of the things we did was like district training awareness at the districts specifically. So it could be a module, say later this year or something, if we want to assess or reinforce concepts, or we could actually just utilize district training coordinators to teach during roll calls, like maybe a 20, 30 minute hour of session where they can have a discussion like that. So those are always options we have.
I would love that more than words can possibly convey. I think that would be great. Okay, and so how would we just get with you on that? Okay, cool. Great. I think that sounds fantastic. Okay, great. So if there's no additional feedback on that training, then I'm willing to entertain a motion, because I can't make a motion, right? Because I'm the chair of the committee. Am I allowed to?
You're running the meeting. I don't think we have an elected chair, but in this setting.
Anyone want to make a
There's only
motion
3 of you.
to?
I move that we pass the trauma-informed care for law enforcement to the board commission.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any points for discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Chura,
Aye.
and myself, Commissioner Benito, also vote aye, and the motion passes. So, I will send out this, training tonight, training materials, except, can we have it in the special meeting? Can it be added to that, or does it have to wait until the April meeting?
Someone can correct me, but I thought special meetings were.
I think it's already on the agenda, isn't it? Let's see. I think you had it
I'm not
listed
sure
from the
we had
last
new
one, but let me,
business.
Okay.
But we do have all the other trainings that are gonna be on the agenda. I don't wanna
Right.
break any rules,
Was it
so.
already sent, the agenda?
so what's on there for the special meeting is, CDP training needs assessment, CDP training plan, and crowd control training, so it was not on that.
So if it's not on there, we can't add it.
I would probably prefer not to do that, because then what happens then is once you do it for one committee, then. we're
Yeah,
probably
that's
But
gonna
you're only a
make it
week
work.
away from
Yeah,
the next
so-
meeting, so.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll probably pass this on the 24th.
Okay, great. So, what I'll do is I'll probably wait until after the special meeting to send this out, that way there's no confusion. And then I'll send it out and we'll, hopefully approve it at the end of April. So, and then Commander McGriff, maybe you and I can get together to talk about the district training coordinators. I think that'd be great. Okay, so, moving on to our next agenda item. So, in terms of reviewing the police training committee portion of the CBC framework, so one of our items we have already accomplished, which was the use of force use of force work group community event that we held. And then we'll be looping back at the last agenda item to talk about doing a second one of those. But the other thing is ongoing. We provide feedback on training, which we have already been doing. And then the other item is doing a bias-free policing training, so a review of current and past bias-free training curriculum, conducting a meta-analysis of the most recent behavioral science around bias and bias-free training and compare it to the curriculum, and then consider revising training based on scientific evidence in behavioral psychology. And so that is on our that is on the framework for what we should be doing in the Q1, Q2, and Q3 of 2024. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up. Jason brought up a good idea of the idea of maybe doing a joint committee between a joint work group between the policy committee and the welcome, Dr. Adams, you're not so far away now. Between the policy committee and the training committee, because it's also on their framework to review the bias-free policing policy. And so it seems like, a lot of the people that we wouldn't want to create make changes to the bias-free training until we know what's going to happen with the policy. But also a lot of the same experts that we would want to talk to about bias-free policing training, we would also want to talk to about bias-free policy, bias-free policing policy. So I think it might make sense to do a joint work group and to kind of work on it all together, and also to design a policy in a way that it can be trained effectively.
So to the chair, I was gonna say that I think this will probably be one of the reasons why we want to have the executive leadership meetings. So I think this is probably something we can bring up at that meeting and then figure out how we kind of pull the resources of, it would be nice if we could minimize the amount of commissioners that we have doing overlapping work, because we're kind of short on commissioners and we're overloaded with a lot of work.
Definitely. I completely agree. And but I did want to kind of just create an opportunity for committee members to share any feedback on that before taking it to the executive committee.
That sounds like a plan to me. I think that's strategic and it makes sense.
Great. Okay, excellent. So I think next steps on that will be to talk with the executive committee about what that can look like, and then Commander Magooth, would you mind sending us the current train, I'm so sorry, I have an eyelash back. Would you mind sending us the current bias-free policing, training materials?
No problem at all. Yeah, thank you.
And I'm assuming that a bias-free policing training that's in the academy, and then where else would they be getting it?
So bias free has kind of been built on since 17 when we started providing it, where it was kind of provided in a silo individually. What we do now is we provide LMS assignments, so I can send those so you can look at them as well. But we also integrate it into scenarios now.
Yeah.
So be it a bias-based complaint, be it just officers recognizing and adhering to procedural justice, principles. Like now it's kind of ingrained into it. But I can give you kind of the evolution of the bias-free training.
And the other thing I've noticed is a lot of the trainings that we've reviewed that the training section developed, I have noticed sections on bias-free policing in all of them so far. So I feel like you've done a good job with trying to integrate that.
Thank you. Good team. I have a really
Yeah.
good team. I did want to put on your radar just real quick, since you're talking about bias-free training development and a work group, which I think is a great idea. One of the things we have not made progress within the consent decree that we should is supervisory investigations of bias-based complaints, training associated with that. Is something that we've internally been kind of look at how to build it and how to do it. Our original thought was to use, body-worn camera footage or complaints that have come through. And we had a little more challenging time than I thought, kind of working that.
Can I understand? Okay, so let's say, so then you're saying somebody makes a complaint of bias policing. Are you talking about a complaint that's gone to OPS, not that's gone to, like where, yeah.
So sorry, it's not as much as the complaints. That's where I was looking at to find
Yeah.
information to help build this training, but it's consent decree paragraph 41.
Okay.
And specifically, it's supervisory training to include how to identify bias-based or bias-based police practices when we're viewing investigatory stops, arrest, use of force data, how to respond to a complaint, right? Essentially, how to evaluate complaints of improper pedestrian stops for potential bias-based policing practices, and engaging the community and developing positive relationships with diverse community groups.
Okay.
Those are some of that paragraph specifically would be a good one to maybe have a discussion on as well, because there is in the policy it contains how supervisors respond to bias incidents, and I like a lot of our end is kind of provide the form and give the referral to it. But I think, we potentially could maybe go a little deeper or something, that we provide. So I just wanted to put it on the radar since if you're going to work on it.
Yeah, I think it's great. And then I also think that, because I think it could be done in a way that's not super dependent, that's not just redoing the training on what the bias-free policing policy is, but actually getting into what does it look like to supervise and encourage a bias-free environment. I think you could also include some stuff around how to also make sure that you're not biased in your interactions with your staff members. So I think there's a good way to that a lot of that could be integrated. So when our executive committee meeting is next week,
I believe
it was the 15th before the
I believe the meeting is
next Monday,
next Monday,
3, 4.
3:30 or
5,
4
yeah.
or something like that.
Cool.
It's
So we
definitely
can talk about it
before
then.
the special meeting.
Okay, yeah. So I think we'll talk about this as one of, if we want to put that under that same work group, or if we want to, what are your thoughts on lumping that under the general bias-free, work training policy work group and including this in that, or actually kind of developing a separate training that's specifically about supervisory practices? I'm also really curious what kind of training supervisors get just about how to be a good supervisor.
Yeah, so we do have curriculum when you're promoted to a supervisor, and I can get that provided to you.
Yeah.
I can send that over for you to review. But a lot of it is just kind of the annual, training that they receive. They're included in that as well.
I was gonna say, my thinking on the work group would be, maybe one of the tasks will be, because, there's like horizontally, this just like it, or vertically, however you look at it, it's gonna cross different areas. So maybe one of the goals of that work group would be to sort of say, okay, this part needs to go to policy, this part needs to go to training, you know, wherever they need to go. And then I think you kind of work holistically, and then obviously you have to branch off, but I think that's kind of the goal, is to kind of see it, the big picture, and then try to work on the parts.
I think, like, one thing that I'm thinking is, I think there's a lot of opportunity to develop a supplementary supervisory training that goes into bias, supervising, bias-free and supervising, but also trauma-informed care and supervising. I think there's a lot of intersections between some of that could be addressed. So I think maybe a starting point is, we'll talk about that as a potential component in this like bias-free work group. And then also, maybe if you could send us the training curriculum for supervisors, like that they get when they are promoted. And then we can continue the discussion in our next training committee meeting. We'll review those materials and then kind of go from there.
One of the things that, I don't know if you all as a committee would want to delegate this to a work group, or if it's something you want to take on as a committee. But I know there's been discussion that in this particular area that we may need like some outside consulting. So, I mean, as we're looking at the consent decree,
In bias or free?
bias-free policing, I just looking at this and just trying to brainstorm in my head, like, how would you address these things in a training? It seems pretty like upfront and obvious, and then once you actually sit down and try to figure out like how do you make it real with the training, then it gets like a little tricky about how you do it. So maybe we can look for someone, and one of the things we can do is sort of use paragraph. I'm just looking at the supervisor training, but maybe we can use Supervise 41 to sort of guide like who we would want to vet or how we would want to select someone. Because I mean, you take the last part off, it says how to identify bias police practices, but maybe you start with how do you identify bias practices, right? And then branch off from how you do that with, I don't know, I think that this could be like almost like a guide to kind of figure out how we create something concrete from something that's abstract.
I agree. I mean, I think that this is such a large body of work that needs to get done, from like the bias-free policing policy, how are we evaluating and investigating that, how are supervisors engaging in that, then like how do we train this, because we know that it's very, very difficult to train like implicit bias and explicit bias and like bias-free stuff. Like, it's just very difficult to train it. And so like there is a lot of people trying to do that training. There's a lot of research around, like, so I think that it makes sense to maybe hire a consultant to help us run that whole process of like, because we are so over commit, like we just have so much to do that trying to like, we're definitely going to want to get experts to come in, but it could be nice to have a consultant who specifically would help us with getting the experts, help us kind of delineate some of this stuff, help us with some of the content development. I mean, I think it's a great idea. So, but I think a lot of that discussion seems like it'll happen in our executive committee meeting on Monday. But I think that in terms of next steps, if we could get the bias-free policing training curriculum, the all supervisory training curriculum, and then I'll send that to the committee, and we'll have that on the agenda for our next month's meeting, and then I'll also report out what the kind of next steps are around like a dual work group. Any other thoughts on that? That was a great point. And
Okay. We appreciate that.
okay. All right. Any other items on that? Okay. So the last item on the agenda is the event again. So we had the use of force work group community event, scenario planning event. So we had talked about doing a second event in the spring. Yeah, Shelley is, that's, right?
Her resignation, yes.
Yes, it is, okay. So, our community outreach and engagement staff member will be leaving us, so I don't know, I mean, maybe should we aim to do a summer event?
I mean, my thoughts would be warmer will be better.
Yeah,
And I think as far as this particular event goes, I think we can pretty much just like copy
Copy
and paste. I mean, I think we can use, I think we can just use the blueprint
Yeah.
that we had. So I think that not having her for this particular event won't be as challenging as not having her maybe for future events. And hopefully we'll have another person by then. But I would say I think we are kind of, I think what we would need, I think where we were before we got all shuffled up and the committee when Charles went on, right? I think we were just waiting for if Commander Magooth could, speak to who he needs to speak to, and then can get us like some dates. And then I think once we can get some dates, then I think what we did was we found the venue, and then got food and stuff like that. So I think we can get a date first, and then one thing once we get a date, we just plug everything else back in. But I know what we wanted this time was more time to promote.
right.
So I think that if you, my request would be if we can get a date with enough time that we can promote. So I think it would be better. I think a priority is promoting. We really want to see if we can get more people. Because I know when we were planning before, we wanted to get, 75 people. So I think
How many
we
people
can
did
do
we
that. I don't know. I think we were like 30 or something like that. But I
That's
think
for
that
a
we
great
can. I think our priority is we really want to get more community people there. So I think that to your discretion, as you're figuring out the date, just give us enough time. At least I would say 6 weeks to promote.
So I'm thinking, do we have a tentative date for the commander interviews is May? Was that right?
So I think we probably should push it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe looking at July, June.
Mhm.
How many, that would give us, yeah, I think maybe like somewhere between end of June
Yeah.
through like before school starts, so like maybe, so that 6 weeks, second half of June to July, if you wanna look at dates around that, and then.
Yeah.
And then we can go from there. Okay,
Because we can, what we can do is we can essentially use like the same flyer, it's the
Right.
same event. It's the same event, so I think we have pretty much what we need. But I know that this would be an opportunity to help to work with outreach.
yeah, is the outreach committee operating right now?
I think they're a person short.
Okay.
But
All right.
but this is also something that if we did the executive leadership committee,
Yeah,
then
we
we
can
can
bring
also
that up.
push this forward with the training committee as
Yeah.
well.
That sounds good. So aiming for second half of June, sometime in July, and this one would be over on the
This will have you west side.
west side. Okay.
That's
Okay.
what seems like it.
I was about to suggest Estabrook. So one thing I could do is, if you'd like me to, I could reach out to Councilperson Harsh.
Yeah.
And then put you on the email, and put the pictures on it, and just say, hey, I think it's a good location for it.
And so maybe just to, I think it's always important to plant seeds. So even though we don't have a date, we can just loop them in and say, hey, we're looking at some time between like the end of June and sometime in July. And so, we're waiting to get, some set dates, with police schedules and things like that. And then I think that would be, just good to get people looped in early.
I think we should consider a plan B, especially because it's a recreation and it's summer. So I'm not sure how that works, especially with children.
Yeah.
If we get the requested, all we do with rec centers, we don't have to ask the council person. All we do with them is we fill out a rec request form and send it to the Commissioner of Recreation, and
Will we be able to have that gym like we do with meetings?
so it depends on the schedule already. So the sooner we get it in, the
Okay.
better chance it would be.
Okay.
But on Saturdays in the summer, they probably are pretty busy at the rec centers, if we were gonna do a Saturday again. So we should have an alternate location,
Yeah.
but the sooner we make the request, the more likely
They
it
can
will be
accommodate.
to,
Okay.
they can accommodate. So we'd have to pick a date or a couple of dates to reserve, so.
I just want to point out, we did conduct a training at Garrett Morgan, and that was a really nice school. They were very accommodating.
Right.
So,
I was gonna say, I think a school is a better choice.
Well, in the summer, you can look at what schools are over there too. I think there's a few parochial schools that might be interested in hosting. If we could reach out to them in those neighborhoods or one of the CMSD buildings, you know. I don't think they're air conditioning, so the summer might be a little rough in some of those, but you know.
That's a new school though.
But yeah, but the rotation of classrooms works really well for that event, I think. So we probably want to look for a space that we can do that similar move from room to room, so that they can have time to set up scenarios, and then while they're setting up, they can move to the other, and then we have the main gathering area. So
Is there a CMSD school on the west side that has like, sometimes they have specialization in like public safety?
I mean, I think Esterbrook seems like it used to be a school because it's got like a lot of rooms.
It's been a rec center since I was in
Oh, really?
grade school, yeah.
It's so big.
I learned to swim there a little bit.
the other thing, that technology was really helpful in that school too, to have the screen and the microphone and have all the Wi-Fi there and everything we needed to.
So is this a staff task more than like, should we?
Yeah, we could, I just need dates and we'll find locations,
Okay.
And with, Commissioner Adams was a big part of it last time because he's in the network of CMSD, so it was easy to facilitate that through his, being he was in.
I know the principal of Garrett Morgan.
Yeah.
Okay. So sounds like next steps for that are you're gonna look at dates and then you'll send it to us and then
Will work.
I'll just help make sure that that staff knows to start looking at.
And Garrett
locations.
Morgan's a great place to go. I've been
Where is
there,
it?
so.
It's,
Detroit, like 40th, I guess, West 40th,
yeah.
somewhere around
It's
there.
a landmark.
It's where the old Max Hayes High School used to
Yeah.
be.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
you know where, have you ever been to the Hard Restaurant?
It's like across the
Yeah.
It's right across the street from the Hard
Oh,
Restaurant.
okay.
Yep.
Cool, thank you. I only understand the directions in terms of okay. Okay. So 6:46, I think we made it through our agenda. We are gonna have public comment. But before we move to public comment, is there anything else we need to discuss or thoughts? Maybe let's go through action items. Go ahead.
The only thing I would like to add is, since, I think probably your next meeting, you're probably gonna elect the chair, Charles will be back,
Is
a
what?
permanent chair.
Oh,
So
oh
you'll-
yeah, because I'm pro temp.
Yeah, so I think maybe when Charles comes back, you guys will do that at the next meeting.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, whoever the chair is, I think, I just did the basic framework, but this is a live document, and I think that the new chair should go back through the framework and make sure that whatever was written here is in the direction that they would like the committee to go into.
Makes sense. Cool. Okay, let's go over action items. So we'll work our way backwards. So, use of force, community event, Commander Magooth is going to check on dates. And then when he gets back to us with dates, I will get with Jason to make sure that staff are able to start working on, securing a location. You're gonna talk to Garrett Morgan, principal. And then our other task items, so for the action items for the bias, okay, yeah, no, you're good. For bias-free policing, in the executive committee meeting next Monday, we will talk about having this joint work group and also potentially trying to bring in a consultant to help with that. As well as identifying experts. And then also we will have a discussion about whether this kind of supervisory training makes sense to do in the context of that or to break it out as a separate potential training committee work group.
This is
Also related to that, Commander Magooth is gonna send us the supervisor training and all bias-free policing training. And that will be on our agenda for the next month. And for trauma training, I will be sending out the training to the full commission. after the special meeting, but before the next meeting, just so that there's no confusion? Okay, great. Excellent. And then I will get with Commander Madrid to talk about district training coordinator pieces that we can do like 6 months after the training.
I can
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
an update. And I'll just put this out there. A company we've worked with as a curriculum development group, Polis Solutions, are the ones who are helping with the general affairs training. They produce the supervisory leadership training that, we're gonna put out. One of the things I was thinking of using them for was this task.
Total solutions, you said?
Polis, Polis.
Okay.
And I just wanted to put it out there that, that is a resource we have as a division right now for another year. So, and if you want to discuss.
Good to know. Can we like meet with them and talk to them?
Yeah, I'm sure I can talk to, so Dr. Jonathan Wender is the kind of the main person up there. But absolutely, yeah, I'm sure they would be willing to, they're actually in town, April 22nd and 23rd. They're gonna come to the Clean Police Academy.
Oh,
So they'll be in person if you're interested, or I'm sure through Zoom or virtual, they would be willing to do that too. So
Great.
absolutely, just to introduce you.
Thank you. That'd be great. Could you also send that to me in an email so that I could appreciate it? Okay, so that is action items. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, complaints?
New business?
Huh?
New business?
New business? Yeah, if there's any additional new business? Do you have some new business?
I just got a suggestion. I know you got to run it up the command, but I know we have an academy class in. I think some of the commissioners should go to the training, especially with use of force or any other thing you might want to observe. But I think that's one of the things. I think everybody on the commission needs to have some, actually almost like hands-on. You go down to the range. You don't have to fire weapons, but if you wanted to, they could give you a quick instruction and let you see what these things will do. If you don't, but at least you can see up close and personal how they operate. Firearms, beanbag shotgun, the ASP. Perhaps some of you want to get tased. Joking about that, but you see how that works. They have practice cartridges, how it works. Things of that nature, particularly with the use of force, because that's going to be probably the meat and potatoes when we get rolling on a lot of issues.
Can we attend academy?
Well, he has to check and see. It's not up to his decision, but I'm just saying, run it up and see what the chief says, and might even have to go front or before above the chief, but we'll see.
Yeah, so there are certain trainings that are for the state of Ohio. Those are strictly regulated through the state, and we would just get the state permission to have an observer. Typically we would have them sign in on the sign-in sheet, but there are trainings where we can have observers to it. But yeah, I mean, I would just talk to DC Fay and Chief Todd for the final approval. But I don't, for certain, we call them Cleveland specific, not OPATA. So OPATA is kind of the whole state-run academy that we provide. But we do integrate Cleveland specific training within that and additional hours for Cleveland.
When does academy start?
Oh,
Has it
we had
already
the academy
started?
started.
Okay,
It started on March 25th.
And it lasts 6 months?
It'll be about 7.5 months. I don't have the graduation date, but it's about 7.5 months.
Do they have a graduation date yet?
They do, I just don't know it offhand.
Can we invite the commission? I think that, because I know one thing that we talked about was that I think the co-chair suggested as an idea was actually trying to have somebody from the commission go and make a short presentation to the academy to like say, hey, we're the commission. We're nothing, we care about you. We're not scary. We don't want to, like that kind of thing. Am I making that up?
Well, a lot of times if they have time, quite often at the end of the academy, there might be like an opening, and we could go. Whoever was interested could probably go down there and address the class right in the academy, and perhaps answer any questions they might have.
I think that might have been maybe Shalina's idea.
It's been suggested.
Huh?
It's been suggested for many years that the commission should be introduced to the academy just briefly, the same way they introduce the mayor and other executives at the city, and then 2, we never get formal invites to graduation or award ceremonies.
Okay.
Never have once. I've pressed the issue. I've talked to people about it, but it never happens. We should be allowed to attend graduations. We should go to the award ceremonies. All of these things happen at the division that they just don't let us know about. And I end up reading about it on social media. Well, a big class graduate. I'm like, well, it would have been nice to be there and the commission to be there to see that. And the award ceremonies, every year they do a big award ceremony, same thing.
So I think
So-
what I will do is send an email to you and also CC the co-chairs and Jason and make a formal request that we would love, I would love for us to attend graduation and also like show our support for this class. And then also I think it would be great for us to, even just have 30 minutes just to say, hey, this is what the commission is. Do you have any questions for us? Like, we want to be a resource for you guys. And so is that okay with executive director and co-chair for me to write an email? Okay, and I'll CC you guys and I'll send it to you. That way you have something to. Okay, so that is another.
That's easy to do. Yeah,
Great.
that's
Perfect. Awesome. Cool. And then the other point, I think it would be great for commissioners to be able to observe part of Academy and just see some of the training. So also in that email, I'll put in a request for you to talk to the Academy folks to see, could you identify certain sessions?
Okay.
And I think it's with a special focus on use of force, search and seizure, bias-free policing.
Those are typically towards the end.
The
of
end.
academy.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Just so you're aware,
Yeah.
usually that is about 5 months, 6 months in is when they start doing those trainings, because there's a lot of basic things they have to learn
Right.
for the first 4 months, 4
That
and a half months.
So I think with a focus on those things, so since those are really the biggest issues that we're probably going to be looking at the commission to, so I'll put that in the email too. So I'm going to try to get that done tonight. Okay, thank you. That's an excellent suggestion.
Thank you for thanking me.
Okay, public comment.
A few different points. I remember earlier, when we tried to make, more communication as an engagement between police and community member. One of them is this training, which we did a pilot. But it was not a big turnout because of the weather. So I thought at that time, in the committee meeting, we did say that we would like to have that twice a year. So the better weather will be spring and fall instead of summer and winter. Because you do need to let all different entities, different groups to have enough time to prepare. So you do not want these two activities too close to each other. So if this time you guys want to do it in the summer, then how would you schedule the other one for this year? Then that's one thing I will have a question with. The other thing is, some of the training, I think right now Academy already has some of that built in as part of the curriculum. So I don't think that we should restrict lots of the trainings in only a 4-hour session. And that's because it seems like the younger officers, even they get some training from the academy, but by the time they actually join the force, they probably can get confused because of all those complicated, outdated rules. So that could compromise some of the training built into them. And this is the reason why I said, before we get all the rules, outdated rules, updated to the 21st century, standards, and maybe we should consider training. I do like your suggestion earlier, saying maybe they should have some hours in the classroom to have a whatever definition, explain, question, ask. And then when they go out to the field, they can actually experience in trying to apply, then come back again. But that takes time. So I can see from the police part of it, for them to have a contract to have an outside consultant or other teaching group to come in, it's really hard to do that. So I think this committee should figure out a way, also with the MRAC together, should figure out a way which we should be able to get a training to fit in their everyday duty. In that case, it will not have the side effects. You sit in a training session 4, 5, 6 hours, and you are afraid that some of the trainees, the officers will get bored. And also, I will recommend in these longer hour trainings, offer certain kind of a snack or light meals. Please remember one thing, Lou always say that. Definitely don't want white turkey meat. Thank you. We don't want people to get sleepy.
Thank you. Do they provide food at the in-service training? That's too bad. They should take that.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Well, at least make sure they are hydrated. That's important as well. To give them some proper, a little bit food, I'm not saying big meal. It's to help them to concentrate, to focus as well. This goes to the kids in the school. Otherwise, why do you think we want to make sure all the schools, the kids will have a proper lunch? Even right now, we try to push in from state budget for the free breakfast. That's a big reason behind it. So I think maybe for adults, these young adults officers, they should have this kind of consideration built in for their training to get the maximum result possible.
Yeah, we definitely don't want our officers going hungry. That's for sure.
Listen, just like we have to catch that lunch break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that's
No donuts?
Do not give them donuts.
No, I'm just saying 2 hours.
Energy rings.
Longer hours.
Call
Yeah.
them terminology.
Point well taken. Okay, we finished our agenda. We are ending the meeting at 7:00. We are adjourning, and thank you for anyone who watched. Thank you to Commander Magoo for being here. Thank you to Dr. Adams for coming. Thank you to Lou for participating, and thanks to our wonderful staff members.
Oh.
Peaceful.
I'm all
Sorry,
for that.
guys.